to motivate the staff to engage themselves in trying out using this method?
Well, a lot of people who come on my training courses, especially those for people working with dementia, do come from care home settings and so on. And I sometimes find it helpful if there are two people from a care home, and then there's more possibility that they'll take the ideas back and implement them. The problem is getting everybody on board in the care homes, getting the other staff to see that this work has a value and is a way of bringing out the residents and encourage them to make friends and to talk to each other. I think the way I would do that is to try during a training session to give the staff the experience of taking on a role in somebody else's story and seeing their own story performed. So all the training we give in Reminiscence is experiential training. People learn by doing, and then they see how they could use some of the exercises on a training course in their own care home without theatrical training. Just simple things like show me how it was, or if I was there, what would I see? If I was in your house when you were a little girl, can you take me round the house and show me what's in every room, and let's talk to the people in the different rooms. So you're introducing a kind of pretend element into the situation, a kind of playfulness really, which can enrich communication and enable remembering. So I think the answer to the question for me is that you need to give the staff in the care homes the opportunity to experience dramatizing memories, including their own memories, in order for them to feel confident and comfortable doing it with other people. But if they do, the likelihood is they'll find that it's an effective way of communicating and stimulating more communication. And it's fun, and it's active. But without the blessing of the managers, it isn't going to work. They have to experience it themselves, perhaps, or read about it, or preferably participate in it and feel the effects of it. But I think it's really very different from one home to the next. It depends on the attitude and the level of positivity of the manager in each case. But you know, there are people who are offering training in the UK and elsewhere in changing the culture of the care home. So there is more relaxation, more one-to-one contact, more sense of being at home rather than in a home. And we've heard quite a lot at this conference about that.
How do you deal with painful memories in your work?
The question of painful memories always comes up, and it does show that very often people who want to do reminiscence are deterred by anxiety over touching nerves and uncovering difficult memories. My own experience has been that nobody has regretted telling a story about themselves, as long as that story is heard and valued and accepted by the group or the individual interviewer. I've never come across somebody who said, I wish I hadn't said that, or I wish I could withdraw what I've said. There's usually, in a reminiscence group that's effectively run, a sense of trust and of confidentiality, really, unless the people have agreed to perform their stories or whatever. So people can always say no to telling a story or to having that story performed. I think where there's a high level of trust in the group, then sharing painful memories is a way of dealing with them. And the chances are, if you have a group of people in the room, all of a certain age and from a certain area, who've gone through many similar experiences, there will be a sense that this is a supportive place where it's safe for me to tell the truth about my story, my life.
Can you think about one occasion, or maybe two, when you were especially proud of your work?
Well, I do tend to think about the work I did with the older people, performing their own lives, the good companions. That was a very happy time. I mean, of course, there was a lot of excitement about the professional productions and seeing the shows and the memories come to life on the stage. But with the good companions, there was a sense of poignancy and delight that these very elderly people were finding a new lease of life as performers of their own memories. And I remember one occasion where we were performing at the Tavistock Institute in London, which is a big centre for psychology and psychotherapy. At a conference, we were the sort of finishing event, and the older people performed their show. And all these academics were weeping with emotion, partly just watching these fragile older people representing themselves as children, as young adults, as parents, right through to the present day. But to see them in today's physical reality using theatre and using self-expression to feel they had a role in society as performers. And the audience were surprised and touched by what they saw, I think. They wanted to talk to the cast afterwards, especially to a lady who did share a difficult memory about coping with divorce in the 1950s. And this was a story she thought perhaps she shouldn't play because it was difficult for her to play it, but maybe too painful for others to watch. But we decided in the end that it should be performed because it was other people's experience too. And I remember that particular performance at the Tavistock, where they were mostly mental health professionals, that even with them, this divorce and the difficulty and being considered a sort of dangerous scarlet woman, when actually she'd been left by her husband who'd been philandering, they empathized with that. There were people there who said, it's so courageous to put such a story on the stage, and it brought back for me the real feelings I had at the time. So I was very proud of that moment because I'd managed to persuade the lady to keep the scene in the play, and it had worked, and it had evoked a lot of empathy, a lot of sympathy with an unlikely group of people in a professional conference setting. And there were other times when the show was performed to ordinary older people, and it was often very successful. And, you know, the making of those shows was something I felt proud of, really. I could say a word about working with students. At the moment, I'm based in Greenwich University, and I've given them my Reminiscence Theatre archive of productions over the last 30 years, or some of them are digitized now. And although the quality of the videos is poor, because they were shot on a budget in the 1980s and 90s, you do get a flavor of the work and can read the scripts and so on. But the other aspect of being at the university, apart from accepting and looking after the archive of my reminiscence work, is that the students are keen to work with me to experience how to do a kind of theatre which might be of interest to them in the future. After all, audiences are aging, and perhaps Reminiscence Theatre would be something they should know about. So under the banner of applied drama, students are taking courses in making Reminiscence Theatre and performing it back for older people. And I think that is going to go forwards. I think there was a successful project we did recently using memory boxes, where the students studied the memory boxes, and out of the stories in the individual people's memory box, they managed to make a piece of theatre and perform it. And I think there's more work to be done in that direction, developing courses for students.
Could you expand a bit about memory boxes? What is that?
Well, the memory box is, it was initially a project in 2004 to 5, but it extended until the present day, really. And it began with the idea that each of 7 partner countries would ask their armed armies to lend us grenade boxes, boxes which had been used to carry weapons and bombs. And these ex-military boxes would be filled with the lives of older people in 7 different countries. So in the end we ended up with, I think it was, maybe it was 150 boxes, I can't remember now. But we chose 60 of the best. They were done by artists with older people, and the artists were funded for 8 sessions of 2 hours to work with the older people, to listen to their stories, visit them at home, see their memorabilia and their photographs, and then work together to make a memory box. Some people called them life portraits. And these boxes, when we brought them all together in a touring exhibition, about 70 of them, I think, in the end, including 10 from the host country, people gathered around to look at the boxes, to admire the boxes, and to read the scripts at the side, which were explanations of what was in the box and comments by the artist and the older person. So that was a wonderful project. And the memory boxes have only just finished in 2019, just finished circulating Europe. And this was a project that started in 2004. And there's a beautiful book that goes with the boxes, explaining the making of them and the ideas behind the project. And since that time, some of the boxes have been retained in the participating countries and are still serve a useful function, as with the London memory boxes, which were all stories from ethnic minority elders from our very rich cosmopolitan city of London. And we've used these boxes with students as an inspiration for theatre and as a stimulus for other older people to make their own boxes and record their own stories.
Okay, Pam, thank you very much for sharing these experiences with us. Thank you.
Thank you for listening.